My name's Claire Willis. I'm the head of sixth form at Prince Henry's, and I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about our Standards for Learning system, which is the sixth form support mechanism that we use at Prince Henry's. So first of all, what is Standards for Learning? Well, it's a version of PD designed specifically for sixth form, which is more focused on their learning behaviours rather than their actual behaviour around school or in the classroom, to try and help the students to develop the independent learning behaviours that they're going to need to succeed at A-level. There's still some emphasis on behaviour in the classroom because obviously we expect our sixth form students to behave, and again around school, but mostly the focus is on their behaviour for learning specifically, and developing those good learning habits to help support them as they're working for their A-levels. And the aim throughout Standards for Learning is to get the students to take responsibility for their own behaviour and to recognise that their learning approach makes the biggest difference to the A-level grades they're going to get. And so it's supporting them making that transition from being a school child to a more adult learner, and Standards for Learning is designed to help them with that. Okay, so how does it work? Well, they get issued points for things that they do that don't support their learning. So the list of the points is here, but I'll draw your attention to the couple that you're most likely to use. One is homework concerns. So if they don't complete a piece of homework for you within a reasonable time, then please issue a point to say you haven't done this piece of homework. I'll talk about how to issue them in a minute. Entirely up to you as to how that works. Most people, if it's not there by the deadline, they get a point, and that's how they function with that. Another couple that you might use, one is lack of punctuality. If they're late to your lesson, give them a point. We expect the students to be there on time. And the dress code one. In sixth form, they won't necessarily have seen their form tutor in the morning because they come into school sometimes just for their lessons, particularly this year where we're having them out of school a lot more than we normally would to help with that social distancing. So if they turn up and they're not in sixth form dress code, things to look out for: nose studs and nose rings, shouldn't have those in. If they've got one of those in, please give them a point. Tell them to take it out as well, but please give them a point. Shouldn't be wearing their coats indoors. They should have a proper pair of shoes on. They shouldn't be wearing trainers or pumps and those sorts of things. So if you spot any dress code issues, it would really be helpful for us if you could issue a point for those in your lessons as well. If they've not got their iPad with them or a laptop, suitable alternative, then please give them a point as well, because they should be bringing that every day and they should be prepared for school with that. Obviously, if you're teaching them period 5 and it's run out of charge a bit, that's not necessarily their fault, but hopefully they brought the charger with them and they can have that signed up. Another one you might use is failure to attend supported study, and I'll talk about what that is in a minute. The last 4 on there, the breaking contract, abuse to staff, refusal, and the serious behaviour incidents, those are worth 5 points. We very, very rarely use those. Normally those are the ones that the sixth form team would issue and we'd decide there because it's such a serious incident that we'd have to intervene. But the rest of those are ones that you might look at. The other one you might do is the unexplained or unacceptable absence. If you see from the register that the student's marked as ill, obviously they're not going to be in your lesson. But if they're not in your lesson on a fairly regular basis and there's no mark on the register to say where they are, issue a point for unexplained or unacceptable absence, because that supports us with picking up some of those patterns. It's sometimes difficult to tell if they're choosing to miss an odd lesson for a particular teacher or a particular subject, so that helps us to notice that as well. So actually how to do it, how to issue the point. The first thing you do is you just tell the student, whereas in lower school you write a comment in their planner. In sixth form, they're supposed to keep a record of their own points. So just tell them you're giving them a point and they need to write it in their planner. And they should do that. The second thing you do is you issue that point on Sims. So they keep their own record of it, but you need to go onto Sims and issue a behaviour point. All of the sixth form points start with X. There are lower score points that start with D for detention. We don't have those. All the sixth form points start with X on the code on SIMS. If you click on a student's name in your register, it will give you the opportunity to add log a behaviour incident. And if you're not sure how to do that, if you ask somebody else in your faculty team, or come up to the sixth form office and we'll show you how to put points on if you need those. And then once you've put a point on, the sixth form team and the form tutors keep a track of the points, and we've got a set of thresholds where if they get to a certain number of points, we will intervene and put in further sanctions. Some of the sanctions mean that they have to stay in school for their study time and they're not allowed home. And we put various things in place at the different levels of intervention, and we'll contact parents and get involved in that way to try and support you. So it means that we get a bigger picture of whether it's a single subject issue or whether it's an across the board issue, and help us to understand. More often than not with sixth form, it's about organisation and homework, and more often than not, the interventions we put in place are to support their organisation and to support them developing that independent learning framework again. And at each stage, the students can have an opportunity to claw it back and have points taken off. So if they manage to go a certain period of time without gaining any points, then we take some of those points off and we move them down the scale in terms of standards for learning. So the whole thing is designed for them to take responsibility, amend their behaviours, recognise what they need to do differently, and become better learners, rather than it being a very sort of penalising system. So points are important because this is how we track students in the sixth form. This is how we pick up the wider issues. It's how we pick up punctuality. It's how we pick up, as I said earlier, if they're picking and choosing where they might attend. Most of our students don't, but it highlights the ones who are doing that. And it's how we pick up those organisation issues I was mentioning. And it's really important that we have this record. It's very, very difficult for us to justify giving sanctions, putting in place interventions, and also to justify why a student isn't doing as well as parents and the student think they ought to be doing if we've got no record of where the problems lie. So standards for learning gives us that really clear record, so that if we're having conversations with parents, we can say, well, on this date, they hadn't handed the homework in. On this date, they were late for this lesson. And it's really useful for us from a pastoral point of view to have that very clear record. Also in sixth form, because the students don't always see their form tutor in the morning, it's really, really difficult for the sixth form team to maintain those standards of dress and behaviour around school if all staff don't participate. If there's only the three of us catching students walking around with the headphones in, or with the coats on, or with nose studs in, and those sorts of things, if we're the only ones doing that, it's very, very difficult to maintain the standards, because the kids are quite good at noticing when we're coming and sorting it out very quickly, and then reverting back to what they normally do when we're not around. So if we've got all staff on that and helping us to maintain those standards, then it just becomes automatic, and it means it isn't a problem and we don't have those kinds of challenges. So therefore, it's really, really important that all staff can issue points consistently to the sixth form students and aren't worried about doing that. Students here don't argue back, and if they do, they get fairly swift retribution on those grounds. So don't feel worried about saying to them, you've got a point, even if you don't know that student, because that's how it works at Prince Henry's. But on the same scale, if you are issuing points, it's very tempting to go, well, you've not done your homework and you're below track for attitude and you're being disrespectful. Please don't issue more than 1 point for the same incident, because it makes intervention really difficult. If you want to put a comment next to the points to let us know as the sixth form team what the issues are in more detail, that's absolutely fine. But 1 point for one incident, and please don't do something like put a point on for a piece of home learning, say it's due in the day after, and then put a point on for every single day that piece of home learning hasn't been handed in, because that way again, that escalates the child up the level of points so quickly that we can't put in our staged interventions. So that makes it quite difficult. If they hadn't handed a piece of work in, fine, put the point on for that piece of work, but then agree a reasonable deadline by which that piece of work is going to be handed in. And if they don't meet that second deadline, put another point on. But a plea from me and the sixth form team that doesn't happen every day, so that it gives us a chance to keep up with where we're putting those interventions in for students, because chances are, if they're not doing homework for you, they're also not doing it for other people. Okay. Finally, the other thing that we do to support staff with sixth form students is we run something called supported study, and that takes place on a Tuesday and a Thursday after school in the library. Students stay behind and they complete particular pieces of work that you want them to complete. So if somebody's not done a particular piece of homework and it's fairly urgent that they need to get that done to move on, then we put them into supported study and they come and they complete that specific piece of work for you. So if you need somebody to do that and you want to put a student into supported study to make sure they're doing a particular piece of work, email Vicky Robinson Junai, who is the sixth form year manager. Her signal code's RIV, so it'll be riv@princehenrys.co.uk. And she'll notify the students, tell them when they're coming, monitor the attendance. And if you want to leave a particular piece of work with her, you know, if you want to leave an exam paper or something like that with her, leave that with her and she'll make sure that the student does that piece of work in the hour after school. The other way supported study works, if it's something where you actually need the student with you and you need to go through something with them, again, we can organise getting them to you. So Vicky will notify your students if you prefer. So you can send her a list and say, I need these 4 students in this room at this time, and she'll get that notification out to the students as long as you give us sort of 48 hours notice to be able to do that. And then if students don't attend your sessions, please put a point on and say they've missed supported study. If they don't attend our sessions, we'll put those points on for you so that we keep that record of what's happening with the sixth form. By and large, you won't need most of this because by and large our sixth formers are a very obliging lot who get on really well with their work. They want to learn, they want to do well, and they're nice individuals to work with. But if you do need it, please use it, and then that helps us as the sixth form team to support you to get the best out of those students. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.